Hi everyone! For today's video, I'm taking you along on how we spent our spring break, our full route, the stops we made, and the places we explored throughout the trip. So let's dive in! We left on Sunday before noon and headed toward Goldendale, Washington. But first, we stopped for dinner at Miner's Burger. Their servings are huge, easily good for two, so it was a satisfying meal to kick off the trip. After that, we checked in at Quality Inn and Suites, Goldendale for the night. The hotel was simple but comfortable, with basic amenities and complimentary breakfast included. Once we settled in, we drove to the Stonehenge Memorial at Maryhill. The Stonehenge Memorial is a full-scale replica of England's Stonehenge, built as a tribute to local soldiers who died in World War I. We took tons of photos because the view from up there is breathtaking, overlooking the Columbia River and Oregon on the other side. Next, we made our way to the Goldendale Observatory. The show didn't start until 9:30 p.m., so we wandered around the area for a bit. The program itself was such a treat. We got to see Jupiter through a massive telescope, a cluster of baby stars, and even two galaxies. There was also an outdoor discussion where the facilitator talked about the stars and satellites. We didn't stay until the very end since everyone was getting tired, but the whole experience felt magical. After that, we headed back to the hotel to rest. And that wraps day one of our trip. Stay tuned for the next parts of our spring break adventure. Till next time, bye for now! Hello everyone! Welcome back to day 2 of our spring break adventure. To start the day, we checked out of Quality Inn Goldendale and hit the road again. Our first stop was the scenic viewpoint overlooking Klickitat Valley. Wide rolling hills, open countryside, and beautiful views of the Simcoe Mountains and Mount Adams framing the landscape. From there, we headed to the Maryhill Museum of Art, home to an eclectic and surprising collection. Inside, you'll find European and American paintings, Native American artifacts, the iconic Theatre de la Mode fashion mannequins, items from Queen Marie of Romania, and a stunning display of Auguste Rodin sculptures that add a powerful artistic presence to the museum. After exploring Maryhill, we crossed over to Oregon and visited the Wasco County Historical Museum, where exhibits highlight pioneer life, regional history, and artifacts that tell the story of early settlement in the area. Next, we made our way to the WAAAM Museum, the Western Antique Aeroplane and Automobile Museum. It's packed with vintage airplanes, classic cars, military vehicles, and antique machinery, many of which are still operational. Since we only had about an hour to explore, my husband asked the front desk if we could return the next morning, and they kindly allowed us to come back for free. Stay tuned for day 3 because even more amazing cars are waiting to be seen. To end our day, we check in at Holiday Inn Hood River. The place is simple, clean, and includes complimentary breakfast. Perfect for a restful night. And that wraps up our day 2 adventure. Watch out for separate video featuring the Maryhill Museum because there's so much more interesting stuff to share. Welcome back to our day 3 of traveling the Columbia Gorge. To start our adventure, we checked out of Holiday Inn and headed back to WAAAM, the Western Antique Aeroplane and Automobile Museum, located at 1600 Air Museum Road in Hood River, Oregon. WAAAM is a 3.5-acre indoor museum that opened in 2007. Founded by aviation collector Terry Brandt, who wanted to preserve early transportation history in working condition. Today, the museum features a constantly growing collection of over 400 historic items, including roughly 170 to 200 antique airplanes and 130 to 210 classic automobiles, plus motorcycles, tractors, and military vehicles. What makes this museum special is that most of these machines still run, staying true to its mission as a living, breathing museum. Our next stop is the Bridge of the Gods in Cascade Locks, Oregon, a 1926 steel truss bridge named after the ancient natural land bridge created by the Bonneville landslide, which once formed a massive barrier across the Columbia River and inspired Native American legends. Today, it's a key crossing between Oregon and Washington and a well-known landmark along the Pacific Crest Trail. From there, we headed to the Bonneville Fish Hatchery, one of Oregon's oldest hatcheries, established in 1909 to support salmon and trout populations in the Columbia River Basin. Visitors can explore the ponds, see rainbow trout and salmon up close, feed the trout, and meet Herman the sturgeon, a giant sturgeon over 10 feet long and more than 8 years old. The hatchery also features peaceful garden paths and educational displays about fish conservation and regional wildlife. I hope you enjoyed today's video. Tune in for more of our Pacific Northwest adventures as we explore even more beautiful sites. Our trip wouldn't be complete without exploring the famous waterfalls along the historic Columbia River Highway. As we made our way through the scenic route, our first stop was Horsetail Falls, a 176-foot waterfall named for its long flowing horsetail shape. This iconic cascade has been a popular roadside attraction since the early 1900s. Next, we took a refreshing walk through Oneonta Gorge, a lush narrow canyon carved by Oneonta Creek. The area is known for its dramatic basalt walls and multiple waterfalls along the trail system, including Ponytail Falls and Triple Falls. The gorge has long been a favorite for hikers seeking a cool and green escape. We then visited the famous waterfall in Oregon, Multnomah Falls. This towering two-tiered waterfall is the tallest in the state and one of the most photographed natural landmarks in the Pacific Northwest. Fed by underground springs and seasonal snowmelt, it plunges dramatically into a basalt amphitheater, creating a misty, magical atmosphere. We hiked up the trail to the historic Benson Bridge, and from there we could feel the cool splash of the falls. The trek to the bridge typically takes about 5 to 10 minutes depending on pace, short but rewarding, with stunning views all the way up. Day 3 of our adventure was filled with nature sightseeing, truly refreshing to the eyes and a reminder of how breathtaking the Pacific Northwest really is. Videos can only capture so much. The real beauty of these waterfalls is best experienced in person. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for joining me on this journey. There's still so much more to explore, so stay tuned for my upcoming travel vlogs. On our day 4 spring break adventure, we visited the Columbia River Maritime Museum in Astoria, Oregon. This museum was founded in 1962 and officially opened in 1963, later moving to its beautiful waterfront location in 1982. It now holds more than 30,000 maritime artifacts, making it one of the top maritime museums in the Pacific Northwest. Inside, you'll find 6 galleries filled with shipwreck stories from the graveyard of the Pacific, Coast Guard rescue exhibits, historic vessels, and interactive experiences like piloting a tugboat or exploring the famous lightship Columbia, which is also open for tours. On my recent vlog, I mentioned the lightship Columbia, and this time we actually got to tour inside. The lightship served as a floating lighthouse at the mouth of the Columbia River, guiding ships safely through one of the most dangerous river entrances on the west coast. It was the last lightship to operate in the Pacific Northwest before being retired in 1979. Inside, we explored the officials' quarters, the dining area, the gallery kitchen, the bunk beds, and even the windlass. Some areas were restricted, but overall it was such a cool experience to walk through a ship that once played such an important role in maritime history. That's all for now, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Catch my next travel vlog as I meet a Filipina in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. A highlight of our day 4 adventure was walking along the shore of the Pacific Ocean. Growing up in the Philippines, I was always surrounded by water, but our province faces the South China Sea, so this was my first time seeing the Pacific up close. I had no idea how powerful and unpredictable its waves could be. While we were walking, we noticed 2 women digging holes along the shore. And yes, I instantly knew they were Filipinas by the skin tone, the nose, and the height. I'm sorry, but those are my usual giveaways. Curiosity won, so we stopped for a little chit-chat.
So how do you know where to look?
Well, it's just a little like a volcano bubble.
That's what I thought.
Oh,
And then you have to breathe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
oh okay.
They like to do it someday.
Probably.
Feeling ko kaya ko rin gawin to, guys.
Huh?
Kailangan ko lang ng license. Kailangan mo daw yan ng license para makapag-ganyan ka, makapag-fishing ka. Turns out, one of the ladies was from Tuguegarao, a fellow Ilocana. She's been in the US much longer than I have, and they come out here every other weekend to gather clams. She even shared her favorite way to cook them, sautéed in butter, onions, and garlic. Simple but delicious. She was such a kind woman, and I hope someday I get to taste her version of that dish. I-enjoy lang po namin ang view. Ayan.
Clear across that ocean that way.
Bye-bye. After a refreshing walk along the shore of the Pacific Ocean, our next stop was Fort Clatsop, the winter encampment of the Lewis and Clark expedition from 1805 to 1806. This is the place where the core of Discovery spent 4 long rainy months preparing their journals, making maps, and getting ready for their return journey east. At Fort Clatsop today, you can explore the reconstructed fort, step inside the wooden cabins where the expedition lived, and see exhibits that bring their story to life. Tools, clothing, maps, and hands-on displays that show how they survived the harsh Oregon winter. Rangers also share demonstrations and stories that make you feel like you've stepped back in time. And that wraps up our Day 4 Pacific Northwest adventure. Hang on for our final day of traveling as we cross the iconic Astoria-Megler Bridge, one of the longest continuous truss bridges in the world. Welcome to our final day on the road. It's the last stretch of our trip, but definitely one of the most memorable. From Astoria, Oregon, we crossed the iconic Astoria-Megler Bridge, a 6.6-kilometer engineering landmark completed in 1966 and known as the longest continuous truss bridge in North America. After that scenic drive, we made our way to Fort Columbia State Park in Chinook, Washington. It is one of the most well-preserved coastal defense sites in the Pacific Northwest. Built between 1896 and 1904, it formed part of the harbor defenses of the Columbia River, guarding this strategic waterway through World War II. Even though the fort is closed for the season, we were still able to walk around the grounds and appreciate the deep history that remains in its structures and viewpoints. If you visit during open season, you can explore historic artillery batteries, restored officers' quarters, interpretive exhibits, and scenic overlooks with sweeping views of the Columbia River and the Pacific Ocean. That's all for now, guys. Tune in for our final travel adventure. I'll be showing you an even more exciting place next. Our last destination for this trip is Cape Disappointment. This iconic spot carries a rich history named in 1788 after British fur trader John Mears, who turned back too soon and missed discovering the Columbia River. Today, the area is home to the Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center, where you can explore exhibits about the core of Discovery, shipwrecks along the graveyard of the Pacific, and the maritime history that shaped the Pacific Northwest. Outside the museum, we treated to an unforgettable sight, the mouth of the Columbia River merging with the Pacific Ocean. Watching two powerful bodies of water meet in one dramatic view feels absolutely surreal. After taking in the scenery, we hiked up to the Cape Disappointment Lighthouse. The trek takes around 20 to 30 minutes depending on your pace. With a beautiful coastal trail leading the way, built in 1856, this lighthouse is the oldest operating lighthouse on the U.S. West Coast. It once guided ships safely past the treacherous Columbia River Bar, an area known for dangerous currents and countless shipwrecks. And that wraps up our 5-day spring break adventure. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored a few of the beautiful places the Pacific Northwest has to offer. I appreciate you all. Thank you and God bless!